County Commissioners for Pinellas in 2000. She previously served on
Thank you, Dina, and excuse me, thank all of you for being here today. It's a very this time today to speak with you about the 3.5 years that I have spent going to the PSTA.
Both of our presenters are willing to.
Both of our presenters are available now if anyone has any questions. We have a show of hands back here.
My friend and I are both drivers, and we decided last year to go to St. Pete's, I think, for the Dollar Museum, I believe. And I talked her into taking public transportation, so we know, what it would be like if we didn't have it. Our cars took us over 2 hours, stop after stop after stop. We said, my God, we could have gone to Orlando and back. And we said, well, we're never going to do that again, so we did not like the length of time.
I have a question for both of you. If this proposal passes and you're taking property tax off, what guarantee do we have that 3 years from now, when you're running out of money, that you're not going to put that property tax back on?
Thank you. That's a good question. The guarantee is in the interlocal agreement between the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners and PSTA, which is being written today. We should be approving it in the next month or so, but it makes it impossible for the PSTA board to do that. We actually went to the legislature 2 years ago, or last year, I'm sorry, and asked them to write a bill because they created the PSTA taxing district. We asked them to prepare a bill that would eliminate that tax if the referendum passes. It passed both houses of the legislature and the governor vetoed it. So it's in our hands to make sure that that happens. When the referendum passes, I'm sure we'll go back to the legislature as a double extra secure voice to the citizens that it's not going to be done. But that interlocal agreement will prevent the PSTA board from imposing that tax.
Okay, the interlocal agreement has not been completed, and it was supposed to be completed by February, and now the date is May, and now they're saying, well, hopefully it'll be done before the referendum, and that's a fact. And the interlocal agreement says, basically, what the idea is going to be is that they cannot remove PSTA taxing authority. They can only set it back to 0. So in answer to your question, it can't be reinstituted 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and the penalty that is currently being discussed that will be in the interlocal agreement is that, okay, let's say we pass it, the money's going to the county. Okay, this $148 million is going to the county, and it's supposed to pass right straight through to PSTA, with the exception of expenses they're going to be staying with the county to cover the expenses of the administration. Okay, so PSTA then, let's say 10 years from now, decides to start implementing. It will say in there for every dollar that PSTA starts to recollect an ad valorem property tax, they will have to relinquish $1 back to the county. What does that mean? We're still double taxed. So it means that we would have to then go back, they would have to go back, we'd have to count on some future county commission to put it back on the referendum that we would vote it back off. The reason the governor vetoed this is because the governor said, and I have his quote, "This looks like a big opportunity for a huge tax increase in Pinellas County, and I'm not going to sign it."
Anyone else?
What research was done for the rail route, and how did you pick the route? I'm looking at the map, going from Clearwater down to St. Pete, and are we moving workers from one area to the other, or was that part of the research that was done?
As a county commissioner, I also serve on the PSTA board, so I've been involved in this for 4 years anyway. Lots of research was done and studies done by transportation engineers. We have spent a lot of time and money making the determination of what the best route would be, the most successful route with the most riders. And traffic engineers there are companies that specialize in that. So we had professionals make those decisions.
Is it publicly available? Can you see those reports?
Sure. The PSTA website, and I believe the Greenlight website has some of it too. The PSTA website, every single thing that we've done is public record, posted on that website, and I mean, some of it is voluminous things. You may want to go down there and actually see it in hard copy, but there's nothing secret about what we've done. It's all been very transparent and is available to the public.
I certainly agree with Commissioner Latvalla. It has been totally transparent and available, and it takes a lot of time and effort in order to stay on top of this. It's a very complex thing, and it's covered a long span of time. And so it's just been a few volunteers of us that have dedicated ourselves to staying on top of it and trying to bring PSTA's materials to you, for you to be able to decide for yourself. So the alternative analysis, I went all through the alternative analysis process too, even though I wasn't a county commissioner. And, as far as the rail was concerned, I will say that the rail portion of it, that was decided before they ever started, and they went through the process to end up with the result that they wanted, which was rail.
Hey, Johnny Johnson for Barbara. PolitiFact looked at the information that NoTaxForTracks says Greenlight Pinellas will balloon the transit authority's budget by imposing a 300% tax increase. And the ruling was that in reality, no group would face a 300% tax increase. They rated that statement false. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that, I actually got an apology from them.
I have an email with, it's kind of an apology from them because I think that by looking at the numbers that we talked about, 32 million to 148 million in tax money, is that a 300%? That's a 300%. The technicality was it was a 300% increase in revenue, and so they were calling us up on saying that it's a 300% tax increase on individuals. Do you see the difference? It is a 300% revenue increase to PSTA. And so I hope that I've made that perfectly clear what I'm saying. So in other words, 8% is not a 300% tax increase, but it does represent a 300% increase in revenue to PSTA.
Because public transportation is very expensive. What do you think it costs to run the system in Washington, D.C. or New York City or London or any place else? It's very, very expensive. The current system is very expensive and is not adequate for a metropolitan area the size of Pinellas County. So yes, it's expensive. Do we want our community to grow and be an economically viable place to live and work and raise your family, or do we want to be a tourist destination only? Deputy.
I grew up in Chicago, and I rode
the L and the CTA bus and all that stuff. But that was 40 years ago. And I will tell you, 40 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamt of getting on public transportation after hours. Does the Greenlight Pinellas have anything to protect the riders? Do you have any security set up? Because it's not safe after when there's no people.
First of all, this isn't Chicago, but I agree. We have security cameras on all of our buses. I'm sure they'll continue to be on the buses and on the rail cars. I don't know what other, that's kind of a future step. All the planning has gone into making financially sustainable system and where the routes are and what it's going to look like, that'll be dealt with after the referendum passes. But security cameras are there and they're observed today. So we don't have problems on our buses. Doesn't mean there couldn't be one tomorrow. But we have school children that ride the buses. And I understand what you're saying. And when many more people get on the transportation system, that increases the opportunities. But doesn't eliminate the need for it.
What about the fact, I've read a couple studies where, in fact, they said the places that had the trains, that what it ended up doing is not increasing the total ridership, just taking the ridership from the buses and putting them on the trains. And then you have a bus system that then is in worse shape. Because I've read many studies. I get cited over Cato Institute. I've seen all kinds of studies from different cities where it didn't go up to 10%. It went maybe 0.5% more, but many more got pulled from the bus. So then you had bus systems that were even more empty.
The rail system is actually a very small part of this. I think that's probably a true statement if you're going from Clearwater to St. Petersburg, which is where the rail line will go, or some variation of that. But the impact on the buses in all the rest of the county where that rail doesn't go will definitely increase. It makes sense. Like what you said makes sense. That why would I have a choice between a bus that's going from Clearwater to St. Petersburg or a rapid train? You choose. So
she's saying it cannibalized the bus system, which has happened in other cities.
Well, people in East Lake who are going to work in St. Petersburg aren't going to go to Clearwater and get on the train. They're going to go down. People from Clearwater going to St. Petersburg. It's a big county. There's lots of other routes.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if there was any consideration given to that rail line to go over to Tampa rather than, between Clearwater and St. Pete, and what the study showed on that, because as a frequent commuter to Tampa daily for, 30-some years, it would have been nice had there been some quick way to get across county. Not from the county. Yeah.
thank you. We couldn't agree more. But the system that we have come up with, the alternative analysis, requires that it be a viable system within the county. Hillsborough County doesn't have a very viable transportation system, just like we don't. We're not going to spend your tax dollars building a transportation system in Hillsborough. They're not going to spend their money building one here. What we are cautiously optimistic of, when this passes, Hillsborough County will then pass theirs, and the next phase would include a system that goes across the bay or up through Oldsmar into Hillsborough County. But it couldn't be done in this one. We had to create the system that's going to be viable within the county.
Thank you. And for every additional line is another referendum. Yeah, so there'll be more money. It's like the Hotel California. Once you check in, you can't check out. So if you want to have a real rail system that goes somewhere, then that means that we have to build another line, and each time it's another tax and another referendum. So this is where we stand, is at this crossroads.
The future referendums, wouldn't necessarily be about a tax increase. It would be, once this system is built, there's going to be excess money. So the referendum would come back and ask you, I beg your pardon. Once it's built and the debts are paid on the current system of building that rail system, then that money continues. We have to come back to you to ask your permission to extend the lines. Doesn't necessarily mean a tax increase, and there's not any plan for that. It's, the way it's written is you get to vote on expanding the system.
Okay, one final comment, and I think we're done.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming today. Yes, thank you. And so I would just like to end with saying that this is cast no doubt, but to say the Prague report was done after the Ernst & Young report in December. It was completed. It never was disclosed really to the public, although it was made ready for the December 10th meeting. In the Prague report, one of the things, this is a 4-page report, and you really should get this and read this, because this was a check by Prague on Ernst & Young. And this is just one example of the things that can go wrong. In this report, in their 35-year projections for Ernst & Young, there's no provision for replacing all the train cars that have 25-year lives. So this is stated right in this Prague report that there is no provision in the finances. There are many, many moving parts to this that could get us in a world of hurt over 25, 30 years that have been overlooked or not included. They're just big risks. It's huge risks for our, and the answer, the last thing is we just don't have the density that a Chicago has.
Commissioner Latvalla, Susan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your work on the commission and for being here today. And Barbara, thank you for being such an advocate for NoTaxForTracks. I sure learned a lot. I hope all of you did. It's a lot to think about. Services are expensive. They do cost money. You have to make a decision on how best to spend that money, and I think we all are better prepared to make that decision on whether to support the referendum or not. But still a lot of things to think about and study and consider. A few announcements. The PCREC meeting is on Monday, May 12th, 7 p.m. at the Twisted Martini. This is a particularly